One's own capacity to look at the self from afar, bird's eye view, a fly on the wall, to observe the self, potentially highly and exceedingly transformative. I read a book called Awareness by a man named Anthony DeMello, and one of the most important things that that book taught me is the capacity to observe the self, right? I haven't spent enough time observing myself, but from what I have spent, from the time that I have spent observing myself, I see patterns, I see behaviors, I see beliefs, and all of that stuff is changeable. It is. You can change your beliefs, you can change your behaviors, you can change your patterns. And I also want to look specifically at beliefs here, right? Because I like to challenge the heck out of everything. I really do. I think it's very important and crucial, especially and specifically in regards to creating change in one's life. There is a foundation to everything. However, that foundation is very often built around both unconscious and subconscious structuring as a result of how we are raised, right? My voice, where does it come from? Excuse the potentially loud truck outside. My voice, though, where does it come from? Is it me? Is it my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, my friends, professors? Who? Where does my voice come from? That awareness, the capacity to observe that from afar, and really just understand origin, right? For instance, familiarity, I would argue, is derived from family of origin, right? Everything that I was raised with, I carry out as a result of comfort and familiarity. The capacity to observe the self from afar. Literally, just separate yourself from yourself and just watch yourself walk down the street. Watch yourself interact with yourself. Watch yourself interact with other people. The way that you are as a person, the way that I am as a person. A collective of elements picked up along the way, subconscious, unconscious, the way that I respond, the way that I react, the emotions that I hold, how emotional I allow myself to get. Do I scream my brains out at a red traffic light? If so, why would I do that? That is a massive expenditure of energy that I could utilize for other more important things. Why am I the way that I am? What made me this way? What brought me here? I'm not asking this question as if I don't know the answers. What I'm asking, though, is... maybe I'm not really asking. Maybe it's more so that I'm just suggesting the structure. The capacity to look at one's own self. There are potentially blockages. What would make it uneasy for a person to look at themselves? Shit inside, right? Trauma. But when you look at yourself, you see all of these different things that have apparently made up, in my case, Chris. Oh, that voice came from my father. That voice came from my mother. That belief came from my professor. The self is very simple. Everything that we carry with ourselves is extra. All the voices, all of the opinions, all the beliefs, all of the everything. The self is very simple. And the self is foundational, so it's underneath all of that stuff. The self is from childhood. Everything else is just years of conditioned behaviors, beliefs, ideas, thoughts, opinions, likes, dislikes, wants, and needs from other people, right? We start off as this little id, and then we grow, and then we adopt voices and beliefs from other people. Observing the self from afar. Why does Chris do what he does? Why does Chris sound like he does? It's an art to be able to observe the self from afar. It really is. It is meditation. It is introspection. It is to see the self. That's what it's all about. Seeing. Seeing everything for what it is, by the way. And here's another thing that's very important. This is actually potentially one of the most important aspects of this subject. We as creatures, maybe we just find comfort in it, maybe it's familiar for us, but we get very caught up in labels, right? This person is this or that. They're good or bad. They're right or wrong. It appears very easy to do that. You could be told something about yourself or about somebody else by somebody else and, take it on, adopt the belief, adopt the idea. However, that and seeing a person or a thing or an experience for exactly what it is, rather than whatever it's being said it is. Two different things. To see everything in life exactly for what it is. That's clarity. Take off the fucking labels, take off all of the excess unnecessary bullshit noise. See everything for what it is. See the self for what it is. Individuate and differentiate the self away from everything else that it has piled on itself and attached itself to. The voices. Where is this voice coming from? Mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, friend, teachers, whoever it is. Seeing the self foundationally underneath everything is what this is all about. And that, in and of itself, is an art. The same way that a statue is sculpted, etched out, right? There is a self underneath all of the mold and all of the brick and all of the material, all of the voices, all of the ideas, all of the thoughts, all of the opinions, all the likes, dislikes, wants, and needs, all of the projections and displacements from other people. There is a self that is far simpler than all of that stuff. And it's not a label. It's just what is. It's always been there. It will always be there. And it will gladly say hello and have a really fucking interesting conversation if it is addressed. This is the capacity for anybody to see themselves beneath all of the labels, all of the voices, all of the noises, everything. That's what this is about. And so after I read this book and I learned about this and I thought about it and I was like, similarly to like generational trauma, for instance, right? It's like a game of hot potato. Oh my God, this is really fucking hot. I don't know what to do with it. You have it, son. Traumatize the son. You don't intend to fuck your kids up, but it happens, So similarly to that, it's like this generational layer and layer and layer molding, right? Well, similarly, the way I'm just mind blown by how this all works because it's so fascinating. The way that a person trauma is as unless it's conscious, which it really wouldn't happen in a conscious setting. Trauma is as unconscious. The passing down of trauma is as unconscious. Again, it wouldn't happen if it was aware of. The passing down of trauma is as paralleled, or I should say, the unconsciousness of trauma is as paralleled as what it is that I'm suggesting here. Being raised, taking on people's voices, because that's just the way that things happen sometimes. Or maybe it's not. Maybe things are much more consciously created in some environments, right? Maybe the healthy individuation and differentiation happens, and the son or daughter doesn't take on all of the excess, unnecessary bullshit that their parents put onto them, right? It's very interesting. But this is why becoming aware of the self, what is the self and what is not the self, individuation, differentiation, and being able to separate the self from all of the voices that it unconsciously, usually through survival, took on, adopted, and adapted throughout life. It's wild.